Have you ever read or seen one of those discussions debating which era of anime was the best? The classical versus modern anime? The 90s versus 2010s? 10s? Wonders? What the f? Of course you have. You probably have your own opinion on which one is better. It's time to settle this down once and for all. Which era of anime is in fact better? Using the most reliable technique? Nah. I'm a firm believer that the quality of an anime in a decade can be determined by the number of good shows in that decade. Simply put, a higher number of good anime means it's better. What I consider to be the classical era of anime is the period between 1990 and 1999, in short, the 90s. Of course, there are older anime that are considered classic as well, but for the sake of this video, because I need to compare two periods of the same length, let's go with this. I'd say it's fair to say that the modern period of anime started from 2010. If I go any higher, let's say 2015, it will be unfair to compare 3 years of modern anime to 10 or fewer years of classical anime. Because it hasn't been a decade since 2010, I chose to have a period of 8 years for comparison, from 2010 to 2018, and the counterpart of 1991 to 1999. I know it was supposed to be 1990 to 1998, but 1999 had plenty of iconic anime and it would be unfair to leave that out. To see which era is better, I had to find out which anime were considered the best of each year. As a database, I used Wikipedia to see how many anime were produced per year, but to be able to separate the very bad ones from the good ones, I needed a scoring system. And as there isn't an official scoring system, obviously, I had to use MyAnimelist. To make the results accurate, I only included anime that had a score of 8 or higher, as 8 is considered very good on MyAnimelist. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy to digest if I'd suddenly show hundreds of anime titles on the screen. I also did not include any movies, but I did include some OVAs from the 90s. With all that being said, let's dive into the good stuff. Research and math. Please don't click off this video, please don't click off this video. We'll do this chronologically and start with the classical anime era, the 90s. 1991. Only 31 anime were produced in this year, and surprisingly, there was nothing with a score of 8, or even close to an 8. Not a sweet start, but let's move on to the next year. 1992, with 24 anime produced, and 2 of them have a score of 8 or higher. Then we have 1993, with 20 anime produced, 1 had a score of 8 or higher. 1994, with 24 anime produced, 1 had a score of 8 or higher. 1995, 32 anime produced, 3 of them had a score of 8 or higher, and 1 of them is the famous Neon Genesis Evangelion. 1996, 36 anime produced, 8 of them had a score of 8 or higher. 1997, 40 anime produced, only 3 of them had a score of 8 or higher. 1998, with 63 anime produced, this is possibly the most popular year, with shows like Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, and Serial Experiment Lane. 6 of them had a score of 8 or higher. And now the last year, 1999, with 72 anime produced, and 4 of them had a score of 8 or higher. If we add all of the anime together from 1991 to 1999, we find that 333 anime were produced, with only 30 of them receiving a score of 8 or higher. To make this clean and easier to see, I have to find out the percentage of the anime with a score of 8 or higher, the good anime. We're going to use this formula: total number of anime with a score of 8 or higher, multiplied by 100 and divided by the total number of anime produced. And we have 30 multiplied by 100 divided by 333. We do the math and we find out that out of 333 anime, only 9% had a score of 8 or higher. Now let's enter the modern era of anime. I'm gonna go through this a little bit quicker, as there's nothing but numbers. 2010, 91 anime produced, 13 had a score of 8 or higher. 2011, 120 anime produced, 24 had a score of 8 or higher. 2012, with 143 anime produced, 23 of them had a score of 8 or higher. 2013, 147 anime produced, 15 had a score of 8 or higher. 2014, 170 anime produced, 18 had a score of 8 or higher. 2015, with 148 anime produced, 13 of them had a score of 8 or higher. 2016, with 170 anime produced, 13 had a score of 8 or higher. 2017, 150 anime produced, 14 had a score of 8 or higher. And the last one, 2018, with 157 anime produced, 11 of them had a score of 8 or higher. We add them together and we find out that there's a total of 1,296 anime being produced over the course of 8 years from 2010 to 2018, and only 144 anime had the score of 8 or higher. Now if we do the same calculation as we did for the classical anime, we find out that 11.11% of the total number of anime produced, which is 1,296, had the score of 8 or higher. Based on all the anime produced in these two periods of time, it seems like the modern era wins with a percentage of 11.11 over the 9% of the classical era. Now, 1991 had no anime with a score of 8, so you may say it's unfair, but even if I take that year out of the equation, the percentage grows to 9.6, which is still less than 11.11. Also, keep in mind that at the time I'm making this video, there is not a single anime out from the summer season of 2018. Therefore, the 11.11% would be higher by the end of the fall season. I think anime is better than has ever been before. There are way more shows coming out than before, meaning there's a lot more trash, but also more gold every single year. Anime is different, it evolves as everything else. The music industry is different, the movie industry is different. It's something that happens to every industry that gets bigger. If you wanna argue about the hand-drawn animation compared to computer-drawn, then fine. That all goes with your taste. But I, personally, don't think anime was way better back in the day, because one year had Trigun and Cowboy Bebop, and nothing else of value. Just because there was less anime produced, doesn't mean there were more good ones over the bad ones. But at the end of the day, there are more trashy anime than good ones in any era of anime, whether it's the modern or classical. I also want to say this, regarding the complaints about more ecchi and moe being produced. The community can't be blamed for watching and buying ecchi anime. I watch some ecchi anime, you watch some ecchi anime, it's fine. The studios receive good feedback and they produce more. And you know what? That's completely fine. Ecchi anime has never been an issue. They have been a solution for many studios and for many other anime to be produced. Same goes for the moe anime. Maybe you don't like ecchi and moe, and that's totally understandable. I'm not a huge fan of them either, but while you and I don't, there are some hardcore fans out there that just love these types of anime. I feel like it's wrong to complain about ecchi or moe, because they are not targeted towards you, but towards their fans. If a year has an average 157 shows, you can't tell me that all of them are ecchi and moe, because they're not. You have the choice to either watch them or not, the choice that you did not have 20 years ago. We only seem to mention the good things about the previous years, which is reasonable, but I don't think people understand that in a few years' time, we'll pluck out some of this year's gems and filter out all of the nonsense as well. The whole "this era is shit" will last like an endless loop. You're free to understand whatever you want from this video. In all honesty, my intention was not to prove that modern anime is better, but to prove that while there are two different eras, the ratio of good to bad anime didn't change that much. Thank you for watching.